Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. If you're new, my name is Bobby. Guys, fascinating video today, but first credit where credit is due. Brother Daniel Chachikachu posted this analysis that we can find on the Pew Research Center, and it shows the factors driving religious change from 2010 to 2020. But matter of fact, the analysis has just been posted on the 9th of June 2025, and therefore we do have charts that show the religious change up until 2024 even. So the reason why I want to show you this is so we have the facts straight, because the internet is very, very loud. Oftentimes you see Christian apologists, evangelicals telling you about an apostasy within Islam and oh, so many people are leaving Islam. It is the downfall for Islam nowadays and Christianity is growing. Don't you see? Such a win, such a W for Christianity in the last debate. But I mentioned over and over again, it doesn't matter what the chatter is online. What really matters is what happens in the real world. And today, inshallah, you're gonna see what is really happening worldwide. Which religion actually has an issue with apostasy and which religion indeed is growing. But before we do so, guys, leave me a thumbs up if you enjoy the content, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and check out the links in the description box below. There you can find my new ebook, The Return, in which I talk about my journey from Orthodox Christianity to Islam and everything in between, be it Buddhism, Hinduism, the New Age, shamanism, and whatnot. Check it out, it is out now. And now, with no further ado, let's have a look. Alright, so as I said, we're on the Pew Research Center page. Here we can read the factors driving religious change 2010 to 2020. On a global level, religious groups expand and shrink due to a mix of factors. Demographic factors such as age, structure, fertility, and mortality tell us whether people in various religious categories are generally young and bearing many children, or whether they are older and likely past their prime childbearing years. Younger groups with relatively high fertility and longer life expectancies have a demographic advantage because of their greater potential for natural increase, which is always the blame on Islam. The Christians tell you, well, it is only because they produce so many children, this is it. Other than that, Islam would be dead already. Let's see. Another factor that causes groups to change in size is religious switching, so conversion, reversion. People moving into and out of religious groups, including people who choose to switch out of religion altogether, which means becoming atheists. The changes in religious composition that happened between 2010 and 2020 resulted from a combination of these factors. The importance of each factor varies by religion. So now let's see what they say about the religions, starting with Christianity. Christians are shrinking as a share of the global population due to widespread switching out of religion. This religious disaffiliation amongst Christians overrides their demographic advantage, which means high fertility. So therefore, even though you do have many young Christians and they have high fertility, still, because of their apostasy, their sheer numbers in apostasy, Christianity is decreasing. This is found here within the text, but later on, as I said, we're going to show you some graphs as well. Conversely, the growth of the religiously unaffiliated is the result of large numbers of people, mostly Christians, switching into the ranks of the unaffiliated. So, which means, yet again, either atheist or agnostic or spiritual but not religious, and the main group here is Christians. So now to give the Christian apologists some credit here, yes, it is true, Muslim population growth is largely driven by Muslims' relatively young age structure and high fertility rate. So yes, it is true, Muslims do produce more children, which is a huge win, of course, but however, yes, it is a major factor, so we're going to take this into account. However, later on, as I already mentioned, we're going to look into the apostasy rate of Muslims too. Hindus remain a stable share of the world's population because their fertility resembles the global average, and surveys indicate that Hindus rarely switch out of their religion. Yes, we talked about this previously as well. Hinduism is an ethnic religion as well. Not that you couldn't technically become a Hindu, it is a bit more lax than Judaism, but nevertheless it is still strongly affiliated with ethnicity, of course, and therefore you don't see much change. Now, when it comes down to Buddhists, Buddhists are declining not only due to their demographic disadvantages, such as older age structure and low fertility, but also because many people who were raised Buddhists are switching out of the group. So following the Christians, Buddhists are the second largest apostasy group. Now the Jews, they lag behind global population growth despite having fertility rates on par with the global average due to their older age structure. This we can find when we scroll down here. In 2010, 1/3 of Jews around the world were 50 years or older, which means they have a very, very old population indeed. And therefore, even though their young people are still fertile and do produce children, they have a very, very large percentage of old people overall. But even here we have to go into detail, of course, because the blanket statement that Muslims simply outproduce everybody, how much more is it really in percentage? So here you can see that Muslims have the largest percentage of young people aging from 15 to 29 with 28%. However, this is directly followed by Hindus with 27%, and the quote-unquote religiously unaffiliated, which is 25%, which are basically the ex-Christians. And then other religions, 24%, and here are the Christians with 23%. On the right-hand side, you can see that this adds up to 48%, and with Muslims it is 52%. So therefore, yes, of course, there is a slow and steady increase in Muslim numbers through birth rates, alhamdulillah, but at the same time, it is not a major difference. It's not as if the Christians are at, let's say, 35% or something, and the Muslims at 52%. So this is, yes, a driving factor, but not the only driving factor. Here we can read again what it means in numbers, basically. Muslims were estimated to have the highest total fertility rate with an average of 3.1 children per woman. Christians followed with 2.7 children. So, as I said, this is not a major difference here. If you skip down to the Buddhists, however, yes, this is a big difference. Buddhists create 1.6 children per woman. So there you have it. The Christian apologists claim, well, they're just outproducing us. This is why, even if it were true, that is just because of reproduction. Well, great, Christians, then make more children. It is that simple. However, as you can see, the difference of 3.1 children to 2.7 children, that is not the issue that you're having, dear Christians. Anyways, let's get to the very, very interesting part here, the graph. So these are the hard facts, these are the numbers, and after this I really hope that the discussion finally ends, even though it of course never will. People don't really care for data, they simply care for their emotions. And they will scream, they will continue, oh, well, you have an apostasy issue in Islam, and Christianity is growing, and Jesus is Lord, etc., you name it. But, yet again, let's just have a look at the numbers. So, here it states clearly, globally, Christians and Buddhists experience the biggest losses via religious switching. Rates of leaving and joining for every 100 adults, ages 18 to 54, raised in that religious category. So those are the numbers, the averages per 100 adults. So in total worldwide, and this will make the atheists very happy, I'm sure, 8 out of 100 left and 2.5 joined. So net change worldwide is minus 5.5 people per 100 adults. So therefore, worldwide, religion is actually decreasing. So therefore, if anybody wins here, it's the atheists. Yay. But anyways, let's see who those religions are that are decreasing. And is there any religion indeed that might be growing? Is that even a possibility in this atheistic, materialistic world? We shall see. Muslims, per 100 adults, 1.2 adults left, so a little bit more than 1. However, 1.5, 1.5 joined, which means there is a net change of plus 0.2. Not much, but pretty solid, as you can see, and it is growing slowly but surely, if we just go by apostasy and conversion rate. So now this is followed by Hindus, which is fairly similar. We have 1.2 leaving and only 0.9 joining, which leaves them at a minus 0.3 net change, which is not much either, so they stay stable pretty much. However, and this is absolutely radical, and this is something that I experienced firsthand living in Thailand, because I saw how many Buddhists converted to Islam. We had shahadas on a daily basis. The Islamic Center in Bangkok, for example, was booked out for shahadas last year because there were so many reverts coming from Buddhism. It is absolutely unbelievable. And here you see it per 100, 22.1 people are leaving, which means 22%, which is a quarter of the Buddhists leaving their religion. However, you have 12.3 people joining the religion. So therefore, this leads them to a minus 9.8, roughly minus 10 net change. And this is followed by the Christians, where 17.1, again almost 20% here, are leaving, and only 5.5 are joining, which leads them at the biggest disadvantage of all religious groups with a minus 11.6. This is absolutely insane, huge dropout rate. So now, just for good measure, if we look into the religiously unaffiliated, we have 7.5 leaving and indeed 24.2 joining, whatever that means now, right? So this leads to plus 16.7 net change. But this is, of course, very vague. We don't know which group is changing to which here. Is it atheists becoming agnostic? Or is it agnostics becoming more spiritual? We don't really know what is going on here. This is, of course, a very big group here because it encompasses all kinds of people from all walks of life here, and it meshes them into one category. So therefore, not very interesting to us. However, what is very interesting to us here is, of course, that the Christians that make this big claim that we Muslims have this huge apostasy issue actually, indeed, have the biggest apostasy issue. Not only by people leaving, but as well by not enough people joining and therefore rebuilding their ranks. Matter of fact, if you look at this graph, you will see, even though admittedly it is not much, of course, but it is only Islam that has a 0.2% increase in growth if we only take into account people leaving and joining the religion. So this is not talking about the fertility rates now. So here you can see clearly it is only Islam that is growing indeed. Alright guys, and this is it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, leave it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, check out the links in the description box below to further support my work, and check out my new ebook, The Return, in which I speak about religious switching, if you will. I talk exactly about the topic of today's video, how I switched from Christianity and became part of the statistic, if you will, and ultimately accepted Islam, alhamdulillah, and contributed to the growth of our beautiful religion. Anyways, guys, as I stated, no, this of course will not end the discussion. Keep in mind, the internet is very, very loud. Oftentimes, it is a very small group of people that is the loudest. And they have to be loud, of course, because the facts don't lie. They clearly show that Christianity is on a steep decline, and it will be the smaller religion. Right now, it is still worldwide the biggest religion, but very, very soon it is projected to be a much, much smaller one. And indeed, already we know that not every Christian that is even affiliated with Christianity is truly a practicing Christian. Do they go to church every Sunday? Do they have their daily prayers, their fasting, etc., etc.? If we speak about truly practicing believers, we already have to say that Islam is the biggest religion worldwide. Anyways, guys, I'm going to cut it off here. Take it or leave it. Dear Christians, up to you. As always, may Allah bless you all. Much love and peace.
يا نفس إن لم تظفري لا تجزعي